Sahil has his own multifamily office, and he's based out of Los Angeles, but helps manage capital for clients globally. We've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years. I think you first found us over YouTube between your father and yourself. And he works on a wide variety of transactions all over the world, really specializing in growth-focused deals, some lending and positive cash flow type investment opportunities. What else would you maybe add about your background or bio?
There's honestly a little bit too much to add because I've worked in so many different fields, from being just a real estate agent to a property manager to a political consultant and kind of everything between. I'm not particularly sure what to add except for that I always manage to find myself in very unique situations and tasked with solving unique problems, which is kind of the business of a family office, right? That's the day-to-day, to solve a problem that only a high net worth family has.
Got it. When you look to work with someone or not, what do you care about most? What do you look for first?
Well, I mean, there's so much to look for, but I mean, at the beginning, just the outset, one, are they good people, right? Are they good people to do business with? Are you happy, or do you fit culturally? Because I mean, you taught me this yourself, but if you get into a great deal, it could be the best deal in the world, run perfect returns, whatever. But if you're with a bad partner and something goes wrong, you will be left out in the lurch. Whereas if you are in the worst deal in the world and you've got a wonderful partner, you're going to be taken care of when the bad things come.
Right. Sahil and I were in one deal, got a little bit of challenging. We were able to bring in another investor, replace the capital, got out, skin 100% intact, and then we're able to move on with life and, no stress because you're out of the deal, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that particular transaction is the perfect example of this, because that when you guys managed to pay us out, that really sticks with an investor, because that's not something an LP would ever expect when something goes wrong, to be paid out, not only paid out, but paid out with a tiny bit of profit as well.
Right.
So for when they came back and said, hey, we're finally at the point where we're stabilized and we want to get rid of our seller financing. We want you to come in as the first lien. And, because of that experience, I was happy to consider it. And I ended up being the lender on that. And we're still in that deal. I think they've got 2 months left on their term.
Yeah, pretty unique to have a deal go a little bit unexpected and then be like, okay, I want to be replaced out of this deal. You get replaced, and then you actually come back in the deal later.
Yeah.
That's great. But we've heard so much at this event, like, oh, it's relationships first. Oh, it's judge of character. What's non-obvious? What hasn't been said on stage 20 times already that maybe be counterintuitive or surprising about that?
I don't know about counterintuitive or surprising, but one thing you wouldn't think of off the bat is to hear the second level or third level strategies or certain terms that, will automatically tell somebody who knows what they're talking about that, hey, you know what you're talking about too. So if I'm talking to somebody about real estate and they talk to me about a cost segregation, I already know that you've been around the block at least once or twice. You've heard this before. Maybe you've done one of those yourself. Or if I'm talking to you about a 1031 and you tell me, about your experience with, an EAT, an exchange accommodating title holder, I know that you've been through that ringer, and we can talk on the same level. And that, in fact, that's something that I intentionally try to do with a lot of people that I meet is specifically mention something that I know that they know that I also know that they know that I probably don't.
Right. Got it. I think Eben Pagan taught me that if you can explain the problem just as good or better than they do, that explain their pain point or a solution to it better than they can, then they kind of instantly builds that rapport. They're like, we speak the same language, right? Because a lot of the language we speak as investors is pretty specific to our niche, to real estate, et cetera. Can you talk about lending, credit, investments, what you like there, what you look to source, what you're looking to get out of events like this, over time in terms of type of deal flow?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as far as what I look to get out of events like this, it really only comes after coming to an event like this for, multiple times, multiple years in a row, say, because, there are many people in this room that, I've met at previous conferences that, had approached me with a deal, or maybe I had approached them with a deal, and it got executed, or maybe it didn't. We can follow up afterwards. What did you expect to happen? What happened that you didn't expect? And how did you get out of the problems that you were in? And how, at the end of the day, did you perform? Now, as far as credit goes, I do really like to stay on the safer hard asset side of things. It was originally meant as, a way for me to find high grade fixed income for my clients that wasn't real estate. But at the very end of the day, it is real estate. That's what you're talking about, because we all love a high cash flowing business and we can secure debt on that. But there aren't as many of those as there are hard assets like real estate. Right. And plenty of those need, alternative financing. Nobody wants to work with a bank anymore, believe me.
Right, for sure. So what else do you look for in different niche industries that you like besides real estate, even if that is 80% of the focus or even 90%? Are there some other areas that are personal passion areas like we heard about on the last panel?
I don't know about personal passion areas, because right now my sole objective is to build a balanced portfolio that solves for my clients' immediate issues and their medium-term issues as well. But I do specifically look for, especially when we're talking about something VC, like for example, Better Bath, Better Body. We're looking at, okay, one, are they operationally excellent? But two, do they have a choke point in their industry? Like, for example, right, Epsom salt manufacturing. There's only 2 Epsom salt manufacturers in the entirety of North America. And if you manage to get in on that cut, as Jason is trying to do, that could pay off dividends into your hundreds or 200s. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure. Okay, can you talk a little bit about thought leadership? We talked about this at our workshops related to capital raising. In mid-June, we're going to be talking about this. It's how we first got in touch. We've worked on several deals together that your family's invested in. Do you have any insights or advice for people here in the audience who may work in, could be energy, could be real estate, could be healthcare, on thought leadership that attracts investors? Any suggestions on how to do that in today's world? What works?
How to curate themselves as thought leaders in their own space?
Yeah, or what attracts someone just like you when there's thousands of AI generated or human written posts going out on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, et cetera, podcasts. What do you spend the time to listen to? What is a legitimate, large, ultra wealthy investor actually drawn to right now with all the noise out there?
I like to get more specific. The broader, especially with the flood of all this content, the broader that a topic is, the less I'll learn from the particular video or piece of content. So I'm not going to read an article about a basic article about, say, partnership allocations. I'm going to read an article specifically about Section 704C and the specifics around how a built-in gain works when you contribute appreciated property to a partnership.
Okay, great. And what about for podcast or YouTube content? I've always had this theory that as I've gotten busier, that my most valuable clients are often busy, and that probably like a 12-minute condensed, super focused piece of content on a niche topic versus then a 2-hour interview. But then you see all of these big podcasts, many of the top podcasts do 3-hour interviews, hour-and-a-half interviews, and they seem to blow up and top of the charts on podcasts. I mean, what's your opinion for the family office market based on the family office friends you have and what you listen to or watch on YouTube? Is short format better? Is long? Or does it just depend on who you are as a person?
It depends on the audience, but it also depends on the topic as well. Because if we're talking about more of on the philosophical side or the cultural side, that's something that short form videos, I think, lend themselves really well to. But if we're talking about, say not necessarily a broader subject, but a more complex subject, like how to legally structure a for-profit family office. I'm specifically thinking of about an hour-long video that Pat Stone Family Office did on this structure. They were the main advisors to the lender family, who's the lender management versus IRS case in 2017 is kind of the landmark case for modern family office structuring.
Got it. Okay. And then for those in the audience that want to work with, next gen family office investor types, what are some suggestions for navigating that dynamic?
I mean, it sort of goes to what I was talking about yesterday with code switching to, know who you're talking to. For example, if I was talking to Sally, I'd probably say unhoused rather than homeless. But, if I was, someone like you talking to someone like my sister, or for example, Lisa, she does this really well. She found specifically certain investments that my sister would be particularly interested in based on her history and interest in Broadway and musical theater. Whereas for me, something that's a little bit more focused towards education that has that kind of an impact is not as compelling to me. I'm more interested in the numbers, but with the right, you've got to hone in on the specific thing that they're interested in, and that may take a very long time to figure out. Which is exactly why you come to conferences like this multiple times, is because
Sure.
you need to learn the people.
Sure. It's sometimes challenging to know when you're working with a ultra wealthy next gen or not, obviously. Sometimes I've heard people say like, oh, I met with someone, I thought they had the authority to invest. I met with them 9 times. Oh, it turns out they have to get approval from the father, and now they're frustrated. And I think what people don't realize is that like sometimes it might be a 10 million or 5 million or 1 million or $500,000 check. And to be frustrated by that is just part of building a relationship and getting to know a family. What insights or advice do you have on just navigating that dynamic of family dynamics, winning the trust over, the patience factors? Anything you want to comment on that?
I suppose don't. I guess the biggest thing that I can say is to not shy away from extra face time, especially with, the next gen members, probably this doesn't, relate to them as well, but the older members of the families, they do really, really appreciate, you sitting down, spending time with them, right? When you came to our house, I probably would have been very happy to just have a Zoom call with you, but we made it a point, my dad made it a point to bring you to the house so that we could have this discussion, more deeply, and to include all of our different priorities, often that we hadn't even properly thought of before. Because often with older generations of the family, the question of why you made money, it's still a stupid question even at the end of the rat race, because it was always self-evident for them. They needed to provide for their families, and getting that shift of mindset from, okay, let's make money, to why am I making money, or how do I stop trading my time for money and start trading my money for time? That's something that you can only really, it's like beating your head against a brick wall until it knocks down. You won't see really any progress until the very end. It's kind of like smoking, right? I think you made this point earlier in when we were in Vienna, is that 90% of the damage, you don't know that you won't see the damage of smoking until 90% of the damage has been done.
Right. Yeah, a lot of stuff builds up, right? Some critical mass. So interesting. So speaking of critical mass, you've been working at formalizing, putting together your own multifamily office, formalizing your family's kind of family office situation and operation. You've been doing that for several years now. What do you wish you would have heard in a fireside chat years ago that would help somebody here in the audience who's grooming their son or daughter, or they are the son or daughter, about formalizing their family office?
I would have loved to have heard a lot more discussion on the nitty-gritty of family governance, because it's extremely, to get a family to move from the very ad hoc way that it's used to dealing with things and making decisions into a fully proper institutional grade committee style form of decision making is a huge cultural shift. And it requires you to really to hear that maybe 10, 20 times in many different ways for you to properly get your head around how you're supposed to interact.
Sure. Got it. And you've met with people here at the event who show you their healthcare company, their real estate deal. You see some of the sponsors speak on stage. What do you think almost everybody not messes up because it sounds almost like rude or mean, but like, what do you think almost everyone gets wrong when they are explaining what they do? Because at some point, yes, you get to know them as a person, but you do ask, oh, so what do you do? What does your platform do? Is there anything that you think they should be doing much differently in presenting to families like yours?
Um, for someone like me, it's a very relationship based. Like going back to that first question, it's, I can do almost any deal with somebody as long as I'm comfortable with them and I understand them on a personal level. So, for example, one of the ones you set me up on yesterday with Bion, the first 10 minutes of our conversation were entirely about conservation. It had nothing to do with his business or what was going on, but because that was a particular topic of interest to both of us.
Great, awesome.
And it really helped me connect with him on a personal level.
Yeah, makes sense. And just so people know, for investors that are participating, or if you run an investment club and you're looking for certain types of deal flow, we want our events to be more productive for you than other random conferences you can go to in the world. We realize we're not the only investment conference on any given day even. So we do look through all the bios, and if you tell us what you're looking for, we'll say, oh, here's a few people that are doing exactly that, and try to make sure you have a great use of your time here with us. So
one other thing I'll mention there is that is just not on your side, but also on their side to look up the people that they're talking about, because for example, he would not have known that conservation was a particular interest of mine unless he saw all of the work on LinkedIn that I had done both in college and just outside of college regarding conservation and political maneuvering regarding, say, carbon dividends and things like that.
Right. And there's no excuse not to do that research now, because you could walk into your car and tell GPT or Grok to do deep research on a certain person of a certain family office and look at their investment history, public notes on deals they've done, LinkedIn, et cetera. And that's partially how we feed the AI tool for networking here in the room, is to take the content from a LinkedIn profile, deep research report, and now we're adding that to our data products as well. So the deep research is finding those connections and deals, et cetera. So there's no excuse not to show up prepared nowadays compared to before, right? What advice would you have for me or anyone in the room that has, I have 8, 10, 12-year-old girls, anyone here that has kids, what do you think I should be doing to mentor my children? What insights would you have related to that, so that they're well equipped when it comes to investing, family dynamics, talking about money or not, et cetera?
Well, I don't have kids. I still very much am a child myself.
Me too.
Yeah, I guess we all are at the end of the day. But one thing I would recommend a lot of people do is exactly what you've done. You've set out a very, very clear list of values for your kids. You've set out clear incentives with fun, playful goals that enable them to connect with them and also apply those values in the real world, in their own lives, in whatever limited way that an 8, 10, 12-year-old can.
Right. Okay. Well, I think it's interesting to hear it from you, because you're second gen. You're not a kid, but you're not 60 years old either. And so being in that position, I think you have a unique perspective having gone through that. So is there anything that you would not do that you think is a mistake, having been second gen yourself? And you're like, oh, this kind of made me less motivated knowing this, or this made me feel like I was being controlled by the family and told what to do with my life, or anything like that?
Well, I won't get into my own family dynamics. That's a whole mess and a half. But one thing I've recommended my other clients do, and we've not really had this problem in our family, but I've seen this in a lot of other families that I don't work with, is that when the youngest generation gets into philanthropy too early, before understanding how wealth is created, it starts to warp their mind to think that, okay, well, the purpose of wealth is to be given away. And, it's wonderful to give away your wealth and to spread it, right? All money is a storage of value. And if you keep it locked up, then you're not providing any value to the rest of the world, right? But I very firmly believe that philanthropy is a privilege earned by wealth creators. It's their money that they made. They get to determine how it goes out. And then you have the other point about, it's a little bit warps their mentality.
Sure.
Before they understand how to create wealth themselves, how do they know how to spend money in ways that are valuable for other people because they've never created value themselves.
Great. Awesome. Are there any of the AI tools we've created that you've been using or had luck putting to use?
I've used Dewey quite a bit. In fact, it's cut my research time quite a bit because I mostly use. I'm very uneducated and terrible using AI tools, but I do use it for a lot of first order research to set up. For example, in the past we've talked about like you've had a large due diligence questionnaire, for example, with say 100 questions. You know, this person fraud, this person SEC, this person FINRA, whatever. Just having ChatGPT do that for you replaces 100 Google searches, right? That how much time, how much energy, how much you could replace an entire employee that way if your team is set up that way.
Sure. When you come to an event like this and you're doing more investments yourself for yourself, your family and clients, what is one or two or three like super skills you're trying to develop, or you look at other family offices and say, to be the type of family office we want to be, that's something that I'm going to really dig into and get really strong at as an investor, in case there's someone here in the room that could help with that? Is there an area or two that you're really focused on developing over the short term?
Over the short term, that's a little bit of a harder question because we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now because we're doing a fair amount of estate planning restructuring. But in the medium to long term, I would 100% love to expand our toehold in multifamily construction and development or hotels and hospitality in general. It's something that we've done very little of, and it's something that we've always known that we wanted to get more into.
Okay, great. Any other final thoughts for today? Something that you maybe wanted to share with the room and didn't get across yet?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of really goes back to finding the right partners, because even with, say, things that you're not expert in, say that you have zero expertise in, maybe you can do it yourself, but maybe you can find a good partner who understands you, who you work with well, who also understands this business that you can learn from. I very much try to emphasize educational opportunities in the investments that I go to. I don't want to just be a silent investor. And if I am a silent investor, I at least want to learn a little bit about what I'm investing in. I'll have, we'll have regular calls. I'll do regular site visits, even when it's not necessary, because it's important to get that knowledge right. Because you never know what you don't know, right? So you'll always make sure that you keep on learning, because there's so many learning curves to jump up at the same time in a family office. If you can find shortcuts, find the shortcuts. Find good people that can help you. Like what Tyler had mentioned yesterday, right? He had hired he said he'd hired a mentor to teach him how to flip multifamily, and 6 years later he's got 300 million AUM, something like that.
Right, that's a great example. We had someone recently come to us who had raised, $400 million, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to educate your investors on, investing in commercial real estate." And we said, "Okay, well, it'll be like a sponsorship role, because we're really featuring investors mostly on stage." And he said, "Oh no, it's not a pitch; it's just educational." And I said, "No, every sponsor is told it should be educational, because the education is the best type of pitch, because of what we've heard 40 times this whole event. It's about relationships, about trust, it's about education." So that keeps on coming up as a theme because it's so true. So for those in the room, it's interesting that the sponsors sometimes are confused and they pause a minute and say, "Wait, I can't even pitch what I came here to pitch as a sponsor." It's like, well, you can mention what you do and maybe have the last slide or two about the opportunity, but the more you educate and to show off the deep expertise, then the more you're actually going to convert people. Even if you didn't mention what you do at all and you amaze people, they're going to want to be drawn to your expertise, of course, right? So appreciate all your thoughts there, Sahil. Appreciate you being here and doing the fireside chat. And this is not something you like to do every single day of the week. So I just appreciate you spending the time. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you.
Join the Family Office Club by visiting familyoffices.com. We look forward to seeing you at our next live event.
If you are a founder, raising capital, developing real estate, or you're an investor, would love for you to get involved in the Family Office Club. I've run this community for 18 years now. We've hosted 300 live events. We have 17 million social media group members and followers. We have the #1 YouTube channel on family offices. We have the #1 most popular podcast on family offices. You can learn more about us and our membership options at familyoffices.com. We have 30 in-person events planned in 2026 and another dozen events this year. Please go to familyoffices.com to learn more.